Had three, I think, good practices based on the fact that I think we've improved in each practice as we go out there. You know, you've heard me speak about this whole sort of acclimation period that we go through and how much I think it benefits players, and I think we've gotten a little bit more acclimated each practice, having the two practices in just helmets and yesterday in shoulder pads. Have helped the players, I think, acclimate. I think they've been able to sustain a little better in each practice, which means, therefore, they can focus and execute a little bit better each time and play with a little bit more consistency. So, and I think that's the purpose of what we do and how we do it. You know, there's a lot of questions, that are going to get answered about this team, in fall camp. And it starts with, what is the identity of this team going to be? How are people going to assume roles? How are people going to face challenges? We've had some teams here that have had great strength of personality, character, and leadership that has enhanced their chances of being successful because the way they confronted their fears in terms of whether it was the competition, internal circumstances that we had to resolve, and those things make you stronger. And I think when you run away from those issues, sometimes you get a little weaker. And how our team sort of responds to all those challenges, how people develop as a team will go a long way to saying what the identity of this team will be and how successful this team will be because of that. Then you've got the internal questions that need to get answered about whether it's quarterback competition, running back competition, couple starters in the offensive line, number of defensive players that we lost that were outstanding players on an outstanding defensive team. So there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, and I think fall camp goes a long way in kind of helping you identify some of these issues, solve some of these issues, have an opportunity to develop an identity that's going to help you. So if you ask me, which I'm sure somebody will, about, well, what do you think about the rankings or where you're ranked? Well, I think you all know that I don't think we should have rankings till the fifth or sixth game of the year when somebody can see people play and know exactly how all these things get answered relative to the consistency that you can play with. So honestly, I don't know where we are on a national basis. I don't really know where we are in the SEC relative to where everybody else is. I don't even know where we are in the Western Division, relative to where everybody else is. So the team is evolving. The team is evolving an identity. The team is evolving a personality of, how do we confront challenges, overcome adversity. And some of these challenges, come from your opponents, and some of them come from what you're trying to build within your team, and how people accept leadership roles, how we affect each other, how we play together. So all these things are things that are evolving. So it makes it very, very difficult to really know exactly where you are after three practices. Now, I'm not displeased in any way with how we've approached the summer, the conditioning level that we came back at, how the players have approached these first three practices. So I'm encouraged by how we've started. But success is always is defined as consistency and performance. So how you can sustain these things in very difficult circumstances, which fall camp is probably the most difficult circumstance for players. So how they manage the challenges, the adversity, how you face your fears, are things that all can make you stronger. And that's what we need to do to develop the kind of identity and personality on this team that's going to be important for us having the kind of team that I think we're capable of having. So, I'm not disappointed at all with how we've approached this and where we are and how we're getting to where we want to go. We just got a long way to go to get where we want to go. Now, on this other issue that seems to be, still out there, I'm going to make this comment about this. The extent that college athletes can go other places are rules that originate at the NCAA and the rules that originate at our conference office. These rules were made by presidents and chancellors, and we have always supported those rules. And I will continue to support those rules. And I have supported those rules when the conference office has granted waivers relative to what they see fit for the player. And we will continue to do that in the future. All right, so that's all that's going to get said about this. And it's, I don't run the conference. Alabama doesn't run the conference. The conference runs Alabama. And they make the rules that we live by and every other conference school lives by. And if the presidents and chancellors think these rules should be changed, then I think that's something for them to discuss and make a decision on. And I think I have always supported what our administrators have thought was what's best for this league. So that's all I have to say about that. We had one injury yesterday in practice. Derek Gore sprained his knee. He'll probably be out for probably at least 2 weeks. So we'll probably replace him, in the 105 because I don't think he'll be able to compete until school starts or be able to practice until school starts.
We'll start over here on the left with John Zener.
And this is kind of a big picture question. Bobby Bowden says the biggest enemy when sustaining a program at this high level every year is kind of your own self, the players getting big heads, lazy. What do you find the biggest challenge to just keep it at this level year in and year out?
Well, I think it's human nature, and I've sort of addressed this before, and we oftentimes talk to our players about it. I think it's a little bit the human condition that when you do well, when things go well, everybody has a tendency to want to relax, get casual, think that they are entitled to certain things, and then they begin to judge the very things that made them successful. And we've had to deal with this with some of our teams in the past. They start questioning and judging. Why are we practicing this long? Why are we doing conditioning today? Well, this is the same thing we did that helped you be successful last year. It's the same old sort of human nature instinct that we've all went through when we were in school. When you make an A on the first test, does that mean I can take it easy in the class for the next couple of weeks, make a C on the next test, and end up with a B average and be really satisfied with that? So it's a little bit about what are you shooting for? What's your standard? And everybody has to make the decision about what their standard is. And when you shoot for a high standard, sometimes you miss. But if you shoot for a low standard and hit it all the time, I'm not sure that is helpful in terms of allowing you to be the person that you can be, the competitor you can be, or us to be the team that we can be. So these are challenges, and I think those are, when I talk about some of the challenges come from the people that we play, and some of the challenges come from within us. These are the things that I'm talking about that allow you to develop the kind of team chemistry, the kind of standard, the kind of positive energy, the kind of everyone taking responsibility to do their job for their own self-determination. All these things are, and then how hard are you willing to work, and what are you willing to invest in being able to do that? So that is a challenge. It's always a challenge. And, each team sort of responds to it a little bit differently. And that's something that is evolving on our team right now. And that's the question that I can't answer where that's going or what that standard's going to be. I know what we are trying to sort of provide leadership for as coaches so that we can get the players to buy into the standard that they're capable of, because it benefits them the most, whether it's personal, academic, or athletic, and it benefits our team the most in the long run.
Go here with Tony. He's coming with you.
Nick, you've talked in the past about the quarterback wins the job when he wins the locker room. Jake did it last year in a game. Can you do it in practice? And if you can do it in practice, what sort of things does the quarterback have to do in that setting to sort of win the locker room?
Right. Well, I would hope that somebody can do it in practice. I think, especially when we have 2 scrimmages in the fall, and I think that that's an important piece of this. We do all the statistical analysis every day of each quarterback. How many passes they completed, what's their completion percentages, how many interceptions did they throw. We grade them on how they executed and did their job, trying to see, okay, who's playing with the most consistency here. But then you get out there in a scrimmage in a real-life situation when the coach is not standing right behind you, and you got to go out there and compete and play on your own, be the leader, kind of take the bull by the horns, and then you have to evaluate, is this guy ready to take that step? And then you hope that he's ready to take the step, if he can do it in that circumstance, to take that step in the game. When the live bullets are flying, and you're playing in a big arena, which our first game certainly will be. So I'm hopeful, that this happens in practice, and we don't have to go into games trying to figure it out. So 2 years ago with Blake Sims, we went into game pretty much with him being the guy. Last year we kind of alternated guys a little bit early in the season, and somebody sort of won the job and won the team. And I'm hopeful that that can happen sooner rather than later.
Go right behind to Michael.
Looking at the receivers, quite a bit of depth, high-end depth on this position. How do you manage that kind of situation?
Well, we have 3 or 4 guys that really have played a lot of football here and played pretty well and been productive. Then we have the addition of, a couple freshmen, a couple other guys that are developing, as well as a transfer who has been very productive, where he played. This is a good problem to have. Last year, we really kind of didn't have the depth at receiver, and it was really concerning in terms of if we'd have lost another player, it would have really affected our team. So we would like to have 6 receivers at least that we feel can go out there and play winning football for us. Therefore, we can play more players. They can be more involved in different roles in the game. We can actually save and alternate our players so they don't get tired in the game, especially when you go no huddle. Most of these no huddle teams, if you watch them, they sort of, alternate a little bit. They're skilled players because it is a stress on them. They run a takeoff route 40 yards down the field. Sometimes they come off and somebody else goes in for them. Well, to be able to do that, I think, is really, really important. So I think this is a positive on our team. I'm just hopeful that we can get each and every one of those guys to play at a high level and they can have very productive years.
Cecil.
Coach, I did want to follow up on one thing. You've had half a dozen players who've transferred over, I guess, since the spring. When somebody comes to you, says they want to do that, how do you handle access to the facilities, et cetera?
Well, our policy here is that a player can continue to work out here, but he doesn't really work out as a part of our team if he's choosing to leave our team. And that's pretty much the way we've tried to manage it. And we've never had an issue with it that I can recall. But, and that's how we'll continue to do it. I mean, Coach Cochran even helps him work out. So, we don't take an adversarial position. We do try to look. There's never been a player that has left this program that I haven't tried to talk into staying. Not one. because I really do think it's in the best interest sometimes of the player, to overcome the adversity that he's faced with. And I understand there's a lot of pressure on these guys sometimes externally, and they get a little fearful of their future, and that creates a lot of anxiety. And sometimes they think that changing environment actually is going to help that. In most cases, I don't know if it does, but but I understand that. I fully understand that. And I think sometimes patience and development is something that if a player could just focus on doing the things they need to do to be the best that they can be. We've had 3 speakers here, and each one of them, their message in 3 nights of speakers, all former players, all guys with different circumstances in their life and different issues, but everyone, the topic was basically focus on the things you need to do to be the best you can be, personally, academically, and athletically. And don't get concerned about what happens in the future, because the only real self-gratification you get is knowing you did your best to be the best you could be at what you're choosing to do. And that's what we've always tried to promote with the players, and we try to do that with the players in our program. And if they don't think they have as good an opportunity here as they do someplace else, we still encourage that.
Last question here with Ken.
In a couple years past, you've talked about the wide eyes on some freshmen. I wanted just to get your first impression on this on this freshman class, and also, what does it say that they all, did their part academically and qualified and are here? Because some guys had further to go than others.
Right. Well, we're sort of excited about this freshman class, but again, I don't like to specifically put expectations on these guys. I think a lot of people put expectations on freshmen when they come in because they were 5 stars or whatever, 4 stars, and we say they're going to make an immediate impact, which I think this expectation sort of, creates some of this fear of, am I going to be able to accomplish to the expectation that's created through no fault of their own, but relative to what other people sort of place on them. And again, we go back and try to emphasize, look, this is all about developing. We want to try to help you develop to be the best player that you can be. Your ability to focus, the maturity that you can sort of learn, the importance of paying attention to detail and doing things correctly, because the competition is a little better. So the importance of doing things correctly sort of gets accentuated a little bit. And some guys respond really well to that and develop very quickly and are able to make an impact. Other guys have more difficult time with it. But in every case, we're going to take the player where he is and try to help him develop. And, I see some guys out there that I think will make a contribution to our team this year. It's like we had, I think, 4 guys last year that made really true freshmen that made really significant impacts on our team, and probably another, at least half a dozen or more guys that played a lot. So, and I think that same thing, will probably happen, this year. But the one thing, and I guess things change pretty rapidly, but I remember when I was at Ohio State, and this was 35 years ago, something like that. Woody Hayes was not the coach, but he had made a statement, because in those days freshmen weren't eligible. When I played, freshmen weren't eligible. And I remember a statement that he made: for every sophomore we start, we'll lose 1 game. So in 35 years, that's how much more quickly people have matured, so that they can contribute, like immediately, and that becomes the expectation. And I really do try to get our players to focus on, look, I'm working to be the best player I can be and develop to be the best player 3 years from now. And even if you play as a freshman, even if you start as a freshman, that still should be your goal, all right, is to, if you want a future as a football player, which means to some degree be able to play at the next level, that's when you're really going to get evaluated. So that's what your goal should be, every day, every play, and what you do.
Okay, Coach, thank you.
All right, thank you.